From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Friday, June the 7th, 2024. Intense fighting continues today in Gaza between Israeli troops and terror group Hamas. The IDF today sharing video from the body cams of one of its units in Rafah, operating, it said, above and below ground, where troops eliminated armed terrorists, the IDF said, and destroyed terrorist infrastructure, also confiscating piles of weapons, including those found in a baby's crib. Earlier today, the IDF said we eliminated Hamas terrorists in a precise Israel Air Force strike while they were operating in a storage container inside the premises of an UNWRA school in Shati. The terrorists, the IDF said, carried out terrorist attacks from the UN school premises while using it as a shield for their terror activities, adding that the terrorists were planning more imminent attacks on Israel. Prior to the strike, the IDF said many steps were taken to mitigate civilian harm, stressing that Hamas systematically, intentionally, and strategically places its infrastructure and operates from within civilian areas in full violation of international law, and while putting the lives of Gazan civilians at risk. This follows an airstrike Wednesday night on another UNWRA school that was also being used by terrorists in Nuseirat, as we reported to you, where a number of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists were eliminated. Hamas afterwards accused Israel of targeting civilians who were using the school for shelter, but the IDF said it struck 3 classrooms in the structure where the terrorists were, separate from civilian areas, and that it took great caution to avoid any civilian harm. A number of media outlets reported on the story as Israel attacking an UNWRA school, and that 33 Palestinians were killed, making little or no mention of any of them being terrorists, nor of the fact that the school was being used by terrorists. In response today, the IDF shared the identities of some of the terrorists who were killed in the targeted airstrike, among them those who took part in the October 7th massacre. IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has more.
The terrorists were operating from this UN school. They were planning and conducting attacks from inside classrooms of this UNWRA school. Our precise strike was based on concrete intelligence from multiple sources. The terrorists inside this school were planning more attacks against Israelis, some of them imminent. We stopped a ticking time bomb. This is what it was. Hamas wages war from schools and hospitals. Hamas hopes the international law and public sympathy will provide a shield for their military activities, which is why they systematically operate from schools, UN facilities, hospitals, and mosques. Sadly, we saw some media outlets fall for Hamas's tactics yet again, before checking the facts. While Hamas abuses international law, the IDF will continue to operate according to international law. The systematic abuse of UN facilities is a war crime, and it must be stopped by the world.
Several rockets were fired today from Gaza at southern Israel. No damage or injury was reported, and rockets continue to be fired at northern Israel by terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon. No damage or injury was reported there. The IDF responded, hitting terror targets in Lebanon. Well, today marks 8 months since the Hamas massacre of October the 7th, 245 days of captivity for those hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza. While reports continue to circulate on Hamas's response to the latest proposal on the table from Israel that was laid out by U.S. President Joe Biden just this past Friday, that would see the release of hostages in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian security prisoners and an ultimate ceasefire, the terror group has yet to give an official answer. Jewish organizations here in the U.S. marked the devastating 8-month milestone. The Anti-Defamation League writing, when Hamas terrorists brutally attacked Israel on October the 7th, it was autumn. Winter and spring have since passed. Summer is approaching, and still more than 100 hostages remain in captivity. It's been 8 months. We cannot let the world look away. We must bring them home, all of them. The American Jewish Committee writing, 8 months ago, Israelis were raped, tortured, and kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. Over 1,200 people were killed. 124 women, men, and children are still being held hostage in Gaza. We will never stop advocating for their release. And the World Jewish Congress writing, it has been 245 days since October the 7th. Our hearts are still broken. Today and every day, we stand with Israel. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Friday, June the 7th. Live Shabbat services are coming up at 6 o'clock from New York City's Central Synagogue, followed by Shabbat services from the Hampton Synagogue. At 8:30, Justin Pine speaks with Rabbi Yitz Greenberg about the life and legacy of Rabbi Israel Salanter, founder of the Mussar movement. At 9:30, Abigail Pogrebin speaks with Batya Sperling-Milner, the Torah student who made Jewish history when she became the first blind student to chant her bat mitzvah parsha in an Orthodox shul using a braille Torah Scroll. At 10, David Harris speaks with Shachar Azani on defending Israel. At 10:30, it's a replay of the Hampton Synagogue services, followed by a replay from Central. And coming up next, a look at this week's Torah Portion. And that's the JBS News Update for Friday, June the 7th, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom. Am Yisrael Chai.